Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Javier with The Real Javier Novo, a channel which applies the principles of philosophy, spirituality, and mysticism to rapid lifestyle transformation and basically everything that you want to achieve in life. For we came here, ladies and gentlemen, to experience the deliciousness of launching desires and of actually traversing the gap between your belief and your desire. Because if there was no gap and you just got it immediately, you'd be very bored. And there would be no point in being here. In fact, many of the great sages chose to leave this earth, chose to leave their bodies, simply because they got bored. And then they went to traverse other dimensions and so on. And that's the circle. And then when you finally get back fully to that unity which you are and which you never left, but when you're conscious of it, and when you truly finally wake up to that again as a persona, then you come right back. Because unity, perfection, cannot remain for long. Otherwise, it would not be perfect. Think about that for a second. It's an argument that a lot of people use against the existence of God. And of course, God, as we understand it here in this philosophy on this channel, as the mystics understand it, it is nothing separate and nothing else beside you. Therefore, you are perfect because you're part of that perfection. At the same time, perfection cannot be stagnant. Perfection is actually always expanding, because if it were not expanding, it would be lacking life. Therefore, it cannot be perfect. How does this tie in with what we're going to talk about today? Well, I had a coaching call this morning, and I was talking to a lady whom I had had a call with before. And she was talking about her SP, her specific person. And you know, I never give personal details out from our coaching calls. I always ask permission from the client to share these stories. And so she did give me permission, so we're sharing the aspects of this. But in the first session, she spoke about how they broke up. But a few months after the breakup, she grew to miss him. And she started remembering him and having feelings for him, and these feelings almost began to take over like an obsession, and she was putting great importance to him. Now he had already moved on, and they had not had contact, so she was wanting to figure out ways to attract him back. And of course you can manifest an SP and attract him back. Indeed, anything is possible, but you cannot do it by using the direct method, like never send him a text, never call him, and do not ascribe importance to him. And in order to not ascribe importance to someone or something, you have to diminish the importance, and there are specific exercises that we give to do that. And in our coaching calls, we'll go more deeply into it. I'll also give you the general tenor in some of our videos. But the main point is, in this session, she has come to find that this gentleman, who was her SP, has now gotten engaged and announced it on Facebook. So, this would seem like a big setback. And actually, many of the great spiritual teachers like Abraham Hicks touch upon this. Also Bashar, the great spiritual teacher. But I have not seen this topic, I've not seen it gone into in the detail that it deserves. So I think we're going to unfold this like it's not been unfolded before, at least in the means that I've seen, and why this happens. It is in all the spiritual books and all the spiritual teachings, and if you understand the law of attraction and the law of assumption, you will logically be able to deduce all this. And I've learned it through personal experience and from the many mistakes that I've made in applying this material over the years and just fumbling around. Because by fumbling around and experimenting in this, you get better. That's why I also teach our students, and I teach in the course, that when you want to go after something, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid that you're going to be a bad manifester. Just go all in for it, blitzkrieg it, and if you fail, first of all, there's no such thing as failure. A failure is only a failure when you declare that so. Because there's always a way back, there's always a different approach to take, and there's of course always different ways to do things. And we go into this deeply also in our teachings and in our consulting. But so by making mistakes and so on, I've learned this, and then also I've rationally introduced it, and then going back and revising the teachings of great spiritual teachers, I've seen how they have talked about this, just in ways that are probably more tacit than anything. But when you have a desire, first of all, remember we're multidimensional. So that desire is already fully flowered, fully bloomed, and you're enjoying that desire already in some dimension. It's what Vadim Zeland called a film roll. Well, there are infinite film rolls. And you can tune into a film roll. Figuratively, you can light up a film roll by focusing your attention on it. So the moment you want something, the moment you imagine something, you've lit up that film roll. When you're doing something in what we call physical 3D, and what I'm going to try to do is break you from seeing this dimension of physical 3D as the end-all and be-all. Because it's not, ladies and gentlemen, and when you use these tools that we're going to lay out of imagination, of getting into state, and of self-talk and auto-suggestion, you're going to tap into areas of your brain where once you open your eyes from this meditation session, you will be shocked that you're back in this, what you call 3D. And you'll start to realize that you can be in any dimension. But basically the way that Vadim Zeland talks about it, if you want something very weakly, you're lighting it up weakly. If you desire it strongly, you're lighting it up strongly, but at the same time, your resistance dims that light. So think about you're shining the light of your focus on it, and that light is more or less intense based on your desire and also based on the resistance to your desire. If you have high desire but high resistance, that light is also going to be pretty dim. So when you're actually experiencing it, that is the brightest light of all, but it's still a light. So why am I talking about this? So you can transform in your mind your location to that dimension or to that path of cause and effect that we call a film roll and be on that film roll. And you can be on this film roll and that film roll and conscious of both of them simultaneously, and you can toggle them. But the space between being very strongly on the other film roll and being on this film roll is going to be larger, like we said, according to your beliefs and according to your resistance. So when you're traversing those film rolls, it's as if you've shaken up, let's say, a cup of sand. You're trying to rearrange the grains of sand in this cup of sand to match the arrangement that you have in your mind. In order to do that, first you have to shake it up. Let's imagine that we're possible to get it after a few tries. It might take an infinite number of tries. It's not going to take you an infinite number of shakes to get where you want, but it might take you a few shakes, depending on how, again, strong your belief is and how strong your resistance is, and so on. It's traversing the gap, but in order to traverse that gap, you have to shake up the sand. And when that shakes up, it can sometimes land in a position that is sometimes 360 degrees from what you want in the first time. The whole point of this is what the whole point of this whole discussion, these metaphors, is that when you change vibrations, Bashar taught about this. It is as if the universe is asking you, okay, are you serious? So perhaps 1, 2, or 3 times after that, when you change your film roll, the universe is going to deliver you something that's the same realities you've been experiencing, or even worse than the same reality that you're experiencing. And it is as if it is asking you, is he or she serious? And if you practice your mind to persevere and to return back to your state, then the universe says, oh, okay, he's really serious about this. So let us now rearrange according to what his state is. And it's like lifting a weight, ladies and gentlemen. And Joe Dispenza talks about this in his books. I'd highly encourage you to read Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. He uses different nomenclature, but he uses science to explain these aspects and these metaphors that we're giving in slightly less scientific jargon. He talks about how when you train your mind through mental rehearsal and through getting into state, not only does your new reality come to you quicker, but you become a better manifester because now you've lifted the weights. Now if life throws another weight at you, something that's weaker or something that's the same weight, you're able to lift that with ease. So focus is a muscle, ladies and gentlemen, just like any other muscle. If you're just starting out using it, it's going to be more difficult and you're going to fumble around. But that's okay. Because first of all, you will get there on the physical no matter what. That is a promise. As long as you keep persisting. Second of all, we're going to teach you in this program and in this course not even to care about the circumstances. When you don't care about the circumstances, you can be as a man in prison who was imagining himself on the beach, and then he was upset when they finally broke him out of prison. I don't remember the name of the man, but there was a book that I read many years ago about, I believe it was a Frenchman who was accused of murder, and he was sent to a South American prison, I believe in Guyana. And he was able to just live in his imagination to such an extent that he didn't even experience any of the prison term. Of course, you have to add to that the other elements of this system, and you won't remain in prison physically. You won't remain in any situation for long, because the universe is always moving. But the point is, first of all, the gap won't matter, and second of all, the more you do this and the more you transverse the gaps will get smaller each time to where you get to where it's like magic. And this can happen in certain discrete areas of your life and not others. That's why we see many wealthy people who have family problems. So there's always going to be a portion of your life or a place or a position in your life where there's room for growth. And I just wanted to read a passage from Neville Goddard because he talks about this as well. This is a great book. I'd recommend you all read it. It's called The Power of Imagination by Neville Goddard. And one of his books in here is called The Law and the Promise. It's a great book. It has testimonials of people who did this, which is basically the same philosophy that we're teaching, just applied in different situations. I want to show you what he said about imagination. He goes into a very philosophical discourse about imagination and what is the meaning of imagination and so on. But this is very important here. I hope I can find it because I had not planned to read this passage, but it just came to me that this was a very pertinent one. Basically what he says here, and I thought it was in the introduction, but I know it's somewhere else in the book, and we'll get the complete passage. But basically what he says is that when you imagine a certain state of affairs or state of events, when you get to that state of events, you've created that perfectly. There's always some section of that, so to speak, upsets the apple cart of other events. And then that creates another problem, for which the imagination conceives another solution. And then you solve that problem and so on. It's eternal. And we would not want this any other way, ladies and gentlemen, because if we knew the outcomes of everything, we would die of boredom. Of course, your inner being knows the path to everything that you want, the outcome to everything you want, and that's the higher you. And that goes into the sage of Stoicism. The Stoics discussed this perfect being called a sage, and it was debated as to whether the sage existed, and so on and so forth. I think the sage is a metaphor for your daimon or for your inner being. It is you, but it is that you which is the fullness of the unity and knows it is the fullness of the unity and is guiding you at every step. So the sage in Stoicism can completely knows the future, completely knows everything about you and about everybody else. and is completely perfect, never makes a mistake. That's your inner being. Your inner being knows everything that you're thinking. It knows everything that's going on or could go on in the universe simultaneously. It is the divinity. That is the guidance that you have within you. But as the human part of you, you can't predict the future. You can only predict it probabilistically. But when you tap into that inner being, you can predict the future. You do that by creating it, as Peter Drucker said. So when you imagine the end, it's as if, Neville Goddard said, you know the end of the movie, but then you just enjoy the rest of the movie. So what's the point of all of this here? Don't worry if things go haywire in your reality. That's good. That means you're shaking things up. As another thing that Neville Goddard said, a lot of people who said that they wanted wealth and business, Neville Goddard would imagine for them, and then they lost their job a few days later, and they'd say, I lost my job. And Neville Goddard said, I would not bat an eye if you lost your job, because perhaps that's what it would take to get you there. And remember, all of your beliefs that are pertinent to this vibration, and you can never sort this out because vibration itself is infinite. There are an infinite number of vibrations. You can't count the vibrations and say, oh, what beliefs should I have for this and that? That's why we don't teach you to change beliefs in this program, except for cornerstone beliefs that have a great effect upon many of your manifestations. But your beliefs that need to change will be changed by the path itself. For example, if a person wants to start a business but he doesn't believe that he can make money, then he relaxes his resistance a little bit and he's able to bring in, say, $1,000. Then his belief softens up around money, and so the belief is changed naturally. So you don't need to change your beliefs purposely. We don't teach that in this program because that's effort. But depending on your belief, there will be turbulence. And that turbulence also creates a way for the unknown to come. Like, someone will give you money out of nowhere when you're in need of it, when you're suffering from not having money. And then when you look back, you'll realize that that suffering was what you needed at that point to get you to the next level. Do we sort of follow what we're saying? So basically, I told this lady who called me, the client, don't worry about your SP. Keep imagining, keep being in state, keep receiving that text from your SP. And because I've seen this numerous times and I've consulted with people numerous times on this, I know how it ends up. She will get with the SP. And when that happens, we will update you on what's going on here. But no matter what's going on in your life, don't worry about turbulence. In fact, be excited about it, because it means that you're breaking through to that other film role. I promise you, if you persevere and if you keep getting back into state, like we say in this course, keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it. How do you do that? You say, I've already got this. You say, F this. Excuse our strong language here. But you say, F this, because I'm not living in this dimension anymore. The universe is just asking if I'm serious, and I'm serious. What I want is the thing that's happening, and I can visit it right now in my imagination. I can visit it right now in the story that I tell myself, and I don't even care how I feel, because that's all outer too. The only thing I care about is getting into state and getting into state, and you train your mind like an athlete to do that. So that is why turbulence can be a good thing. Don't worry about the gap. It will go away of its own accord. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you find our channel of value, please subscribe and like so we can get this information out to as many people as possible. I am doing coaching calls, and it's already taken off. I've had a few clients. We've had great success with these calls. People are making advances toward their rapid lifestyle transformation. Send me an email. I will put the email in the description, and we'll set up a call. So, until very soon, with great love and appreciation, this is Javier, and we'll see you soon.